Good day. Our program will begin in just a moment. Good day. Our program will begin in just a moment. Good day, and welcome to Advocacy Anywhere, powered by American Jewish Committee. Advocacy Anywhere is AJC's digital platform that enables you to engage with AJC's global expertise, content, and advocacy from wherever you are. The past academic year was very challenging for Jewish students, marked by increasing threats, harassment, and violence during nationwide campus protests and encampments. As we look ahead to the fall, how can Jewish students equip themselves with strategies and support systems to thrive in the upcoming semester? Here to answer these questions and more are members of the AJC Campus Global Board, Ryan Kasanoff at American University, Chanel Mizrahi at University of Southern California, and Melanie Schwartz at Cornell University. Moderating our conversation today is AJC Director of Campus Affairs, Mush Lenser. After we hear from our guests, we will take your questions. You may email your question to questions@ajc.org. Questions is plural, or you can use the Q&A feature in Zoom. Mush, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And before we start with our questions, I want to thank our students again, our amazing student leaders that have joined us today to share a little bit about their experiences and their thoughts as we are approaching a new school year. A very interesting school year. It's been a very insightful and learned summer. And as we start, please start by sharing a little bit about your story, your background, your involvement on college campuses, and we'll start with Ryan.
Sure. Thank you, Mush. It's great to be here with you all today. And I know we have a lot of participants here. So I think that just shows the dedication and the importance of the issues that students are dealing with on college campuses. My name is Ryan Kasanoff. I'm a rising senior at American University in Washington, D.C., and I'm studying international affairs and international business. And I have the absolute pleasure this year of serving as president of AJC's Campus Global Board. It's a board of around 30 students from around the world who are dedicated to supporting AJC's mission and specifically at serving as advisors to AJC's work. So AJC as an organization doesn't want to speak for college students. They want to hear from college students and allow our voices to influence the work that they do. So very excited to be here with you all today. Thanks for having me.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. I just want to say congrats to all the seniors and incoming seniors in high school. I am Chanel Mizrahi, born and raised in Los Angeles, and also a rising senior at the University of Southern California. And I'm majoring in human development and minoring in hip hop dance. And I'm also a member on Campus Global Board, but my journey with AJC started when I was actually in high school as a Lift Leader for Tomorrow's Student, which many of you might have actually participated in. But thank you for being here today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melanie Schwartz. Thank you so much for partaking in the Zoom, and I'm so happy to be here with my friends Chanel and Ryan. I'm originally from Westchester, New York, and I'm a rising senior at Cornell University. This past year, I was VP of Marketing for the AJC Global Campus Board, and it has been a great experience so far. Just a little bit about my experience on campus. I am the president of Cornell Hillel, and I am the senior advisor for Cornellians for Israel. And I'm really excited to be here. Thanks again.
Thank you all. So this was a very unprecedented year. The rise of anti-Semitism on campuses, the physical attacks, the verbal attacks, the lines were crossed in a lot of situations. Do you all mind sharing your personal experiences on campus and what it felt like to be a Jewish student, a Jewish leader on campus this past school year?
I can kick us off. So on campus, I've had the privilege of being heavily involved with organizations like Hillel and Chabad, as well as Trojans for Israel. And yeah, I mean, this past year has been both extremely challenging, but transformative as well. I think post October 7th, our campus, like many other schools, saw a surge in protests and hostility towards Jewish students. And this is just something that we had never seen before at USC. It's always been a very apolitical campus, unlike Berkeley and other Ivies. So we just honestly were shocked as a student body. But I will say that despite all these challenges, there's been a very empowering journey as we worked alongside peers and also the administration. After sort of the threats students faced, we brought forward dozens of testimonies to administration, and the president and provost were extremely horrified. And that kind of gave them the ultimate push that they needed to really put their foot down on both the encampments, but also that the behavior that was kind of boiling on our campus throughout both early fall semester and throughout the spring. And after meeting with our administration, they completely removed all the encampments. And I think while there's sort of a lot of information that's not being put out there, we kind of focus on what's happening behind closed doors to keep a really good relationship with school administration and, always maintain a good public image for the Jewish community. And I think that this approach has sort of made an impact in the community, since it shows two parallel sides of how the Jewish community stands up against any sort of hate. And I think while there's obviously this much larger voice on all of our campuses, I think it's brought a lot of Jewish students closer together and really shows that we are seen and we are heard on our campus. So overall, I think that sort of taught us experiences about resiliency and importance of advocacy.
I can jump in there next. I totally agree with Chanel, but I do want to just add that to say this past year has been anything less than challenging, it honestly would be an understatement. It was a really, really hard year to be a Jewish student on campus or a pro-Israel advocate, especially as a student leader, but just as a student. I mean, Jewish, pro-Israel or not, I mean, campus was chaotic. The campus climate across countries was, unprecedented and just never seen before. I think that what I've seen since October 7th, and like I said, I am currently the president of Cornell Hillel and the senior advisor for Cornellians for Israel, so like Chanel, I'm very involved, is just a lack of response from administrators and the administration. And we've seen that in many different ways, whether that's, especially, and the most prevalent is when students break the code of conduct, there are no consequences for their actions. And like Chanel, I've had many conversations with administrators and people who can control these outcomes. And it's been tough. We tell them what the Jewish students are facing and what we're feeling and say, we see these people breaking the code of conduct, breaking the rules, and nothing's happening. And we ask them because, is there something happening to let us know? And I think the most frustrating thing is that there's nothing happening. And I think that it's important, like Chanel said, to continue these conversations behind closed doors, but it's also continuing to be loud and proud and just showing up and showing the whole university and your future college campuses that we are here and we're not going anywhere. Like to Chanel's point too, is we've really come together as a community. We started out pre-October 7th with 40 students in our Cornellians for Israel group chat. And at the end of the year, we had 400. So although it was terrible what made us come together, we came together and we really did stand proud against all this terrible anti-Semitism and anti-Israel rhetoric that we've seen across college campuses.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of the similar challenges that Mel and Chanel were facing. I had the unique experience last semester of studying abroad. And so fall was incredibly difficult at AU and at campuses across the country. And when I was going abroad in the spring, I knew that I would see a different anti-Semitism being in Europe. And I sort of looked forward to having a break from the anti-Semitism that was going on American college campuses. And I talked to a lot of people about that. And I got to my study abroad program, and everything was fine for the first month and a half. And as encampments started to pop up at schools around the US, so too were encampments popping up across Europe. And as this was happening, some of my friends that I made that were Jewish, we started to pay attention to what was going on and to try to understand what we can do to make sure that Jewish students are protected. And so it was a very small school where I studied abroad. There were about 500 to 600 students. And so it was very easy to reach the president. We sent him an email, let him know what was going on, letting him know who we were, what we were about, and why these encampments are very frequently anti-Semitic. And we sat down and we said, look, we're all for free speech. Free speech is so important to us as American students. And to us as students in general, but we want to make sure that these aren't crossing the line. And so I was very fortunate to have those opportunities to build those connections within the campus administration while I was abroad. And to bring things a little bit closer to home back in DC, it's very tough. I will say, I think AU, something that American handled really well, was they didn't allow an encampment. And they also banned protests indoors. So students were not allowed to protest inside any academic buildings. If they were breaking the student code of conduct, and they would be sent to the conduct board. The good thing about this is that it resolved a lot of the issues that we were having. But the bad news about this is a lot of those students who would have otherwise built an encampment on campus went down the road to George Washington University. And I'm sure, as many of you saw, there were many, many problems there. Incredibly high amounts of anti-Semitism there. So it was certainly full of challenges, and it was also full of Jewish joy, which I'll talk a little bit about later. It wasn't all cloudy days and sadness, but there was also some times where the community really came together.
Thank you all. So as you mentioned, this was challenging as the understatement of the year for this past school year. And it's not something that we prepared for and the students expected to happen. How did you all deal with this on within your own mental health side? What were best practices that you used? Anything you want to share of how did you make it to now, and how are you continuing to be the advocates you are with everything challenging around you?
I can start. One, I think just doing and making sure you continue to do what makes you happy and makes you feel good. Like for me, that's exercising, getting outside, but also reminding yourself why you're here and why you're in this position. I am not the first person to say this, but it's whatever position you're going to be in, it's really difficult, whether you're a student leader, whether you're on the sideline, whether you're a participant. And I think you have to choose where you want to be. And for me, I want to be that student leader. I want to be in the room talking to administration and talking to the administrators that could really make a change on our campus. And again, like I said, no matter where you are, it's going to be difficult if you're watching, if you're coming to a rally, or if you're leading that rally. And I think it's figuring out where you fit best and where you can make the biggest impact, and just continuing to remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. And for me, it's for the love of my Jewish community and the love of Israel, and continuing to make our campus better.
I definitely think one of the most important steps that I took this past year, and I know it sounds so basic, but like taking time for myself. I mean, how can we as student leaders, student advocates, expect to be on our best game if we're not taking care of ourselves? And it took me a while to realize that. But it's so important, because I can't advocate for what's right, and I can't advocate for Jewish students on campus if I'm not understanding what I need as Ryan, so that really, really helped me and made a big difference. And I think something else that was really good for me and for my mental health is finding an organization that fits you. There are so many opportunities to get involved on campus in Jewish causes, in pro-Israel spaces, and elsewhere. And so it's really important to find that community. And if you can't find the community, you can start your own. That's totally normal. It happens all the time. And most likely there are people that would want to join your community and get involved. And then lastly, I think finding a space where you don't have to be an advocate all the time. For me, that's my Hillel on campus, where I can enjoy a Shabbat dinner and I can hang out with my friends. I can go to my Hillel and study, where yes, there are pro-Israel groups within our Hillel, but also I've created this space for myself to where I don't have to be an advocate all the time. And we can't. That's not like feasible for us as humans. And so just finding those ways and those communities and those spaces to really make sure you're taking care of yourself. And if you're a parent on this call, encouraging your kids to do that too, sending them some positive messages and positive support, because as everyone knows, it's not always easy.
I think, yeah, like both Ryan and Mel said, I think first and foremost, we're all sort of students at the end of the day, and we can make what we want of our college experience. We're very involved students, but doesn't mean that you kind of have to take that leadership role coming onto campus as a Jewish student. So I think that's one thing to remember coming into campus. And I will say that the second thing is, find things that you really enjoy and find things that make you happy. I picked up a minor in dance my freshman year, and I've stuck with that throughout the last 2 years of my undergrad experience. And just dance has been a transformative experience, and I've met other students. So I think if you can join things that are fun and interactive, really separates, the hard academic study from all the other things going on. And I will say that, a lot of us have social media, so it's important to take a break from that sometimes. There's usually, a negative stream that you're being fed, and it can really upset your kind of destroy or disrupt your day. And so I think it's important to take a break from that. And yeah, like our Jewish communities are always going to be there for us. I mean, it's not something that we always have to sort of resort to, but I think it's important to note that both Hillel and Chabad have amazing events going on throughout the week, throughout the semester, and it really brings a community of people together that aren't just Jewish. So yeah, on Fridays, if you want to go to Shabbat and just relax to have a good meal, that's something you can do. So remembering that these people are always there for you is really important.
Thank you all for sharing and for showing that there are different ways to deal with this, but also going back to our community. The Jewish community is there for all of us on campus, and it's a place where you can be yourself. So as this school year is about to start, and as Jewish advocates, how do you want your administration, your student body to be there for you? What type of specific issues do you think that you need to address, and what issues you have with both the administration and the student body as a whole after this past school year that needs to change, or where are places where you've seen some small shivers of hope that you want to make sure that they lean on to?
I can start with this one, Moosh. I think one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest pieces that needs to be discussed with campus administrations, not just on my campus, but campuses across the country, is the student code of conduct. The student codes of conduct are there for a reason. In many cases, they're not being enforced. Specifically, when you have these egregious encampments filled with anti-Semitic hate, the codes of conduct aren't being followed, and the university is not doing anything to enforce them. So that's really the biggest challenge. And something else that I've noticed is a lot of these codes of conduct are incredibly outdated. I know at my university, it was recently updated to talk about social media, but only recently. Like, the hate that we are experiencing as Jewish students isn't just on campus, it's online too. And so we need to make sure that our universities are prepared to support Jewish students, and not just Jewish students, support all students facing hate and discrimination online. We can't do that if the codes of conduct are not enforced. And this is something that I know AJC is working on, and I'm very, very thankful for that. And we've had great conversations about how to update codes of conduct, why they need to be updated, and the ways in which to do that. And lastly, just a message to students out here. You know more about your experiences than anyone else. If there are groups on campus, if the administration on your campus is trying to speak over you, that's not okay. You are the one living in reality, and you are the one dealing with all of these problems. And it's really, really important for you to recognize that, because oftentimes we think, oh, I'm just a college student, I'm young, I don't know what's going on in the world, but you're living and breathing these experiences. And it's important to take a step back and to recognize that. And it'll make you a better advocate. It'll make you a better student. I would say it'll make you better all around. And so taking the time to recognize that, and also for the organizations that you're working with on campus, just politely reminding them that, hey, I want to make sure that my voice is heard in the work that I'm doing. And I want to make sure that other students' voices are included as well, because there are all these external problems that are going on, but this is what's happening right here, right now. And it's important that you hear me out as a student. So I think that's great. If you're a Jewish professional on the call, working in the college space, keeping that in mind is really key as we move into this next school year.
I can echo what Ryan said 100%. I totally agree. And it's very prevalent on Cornell's campus that I think there's just a lack of response and students aren't held accountable when it's very obvious they're breaking the school code of conduct. I also want to just add that it doesn't say anywhere that what happens when you break the school code of conduct, at least at Cornell. So, for example, when we had protests in the library, day after day after day for weeks, the university, even though it says in the code of conduct that they're not allowed to do that, what was the result? What was going to happen if you did do that? It doesn't say that anywhere. So not only are they not holding the students accountable, there's no accountability for the university because they could suspend a student for 1 day, or a suspension may not even be the consequence for breaking that code of conduct. So I totally echo what Ryan is saying. I also want to add that as a student leader and for the whole Jewish community and pro-Israel community at Cornell, I think a big goal of mine as an advocate is to be proactive this coming semester. Today, I found out that SJPs all over Students for Justice in Palestine chapters across the whole country are starting to reserve spaces on October 7th. And when I realized that, I was like, I need to get on that. I need to make sure that we have the space reserved so we can have a gathering or a vigil and my community can come together and mourn. So I think it's a lot that we have to fix with the administration and again, continue advocating on our behalf, but it's also being proactive against other students and making sure that we have the spaces that we need to have.
So I think as Jewish advocates, we all sort of feel the same thing. We really must address the rise of anti-Semitism on campus. And, this includes pushing the administration to take a firm stance against any sort of hate speech to ensure the safety and well-being of all Jewish students and honestly non-Jewish students. I think what we saw post-October 7th was hostile for all students on campus. And, when we were studying during finals week and we heard chants and different things going on outside of the library, it disrupted learning for almost everyone. And I think the other thing that we sort of need to do as Jewish advocates is really educate the broader student body about Jewish history and culture to combat any sort of ignorance and prejudice against the Jewish community. I think it's important that there's some sort of way we could promote dialogue and build alliances with other marginalized groups to really create a campus that is more inclusive and supportive of all students.
Thank you. I would like to add also that last week, AJC, with partnership with the ADL, JFNA, Hillel International, and the Conference of Presidents, and signed on by a variety of other campus organizations, have released an official statement and requests for university administrators to deal with specific issues when it comes to Jewish students on campus. You can find more information about it on our website and our social media. As we move on to the beginning of the school year, for some of you, it's in a few weeks. For some of you, it's in a few days. I know that some universities also across the US are moving in the next day or two on their campus. What do you hope or think or envision that will be happening this upcoming school year? What are ways that you feel like this past summer that your communities, the Jewish communities, the pro-Israel community, the communities you're in, has been figuring out how to prepare for this upcoming year? And just to add on a more positive note, like where would you think that you will go to find community on campus and some moments of happiness and some moments of safety?
Well, I think this summer has been a lot of personal growth and advocacy. This past summer was the AJC's Campus Global Board, or AJC's conference over the summer, and Ryan and I actually got to speak on a panel similar to this, talking about sort of things we faced as Jewish students on campus. And I think it's honestly the little things that empower Jewish students. AJC gives an incredible platform to students, and it gives us the confidence to go onto our campuses and make sure that we have the tools we need to address situations, or make sure that we have the tools that if a camera's in front of us, we know what to say in front of the media. So I think preparation has been something that I've been learning a lot this summer, and AJC has equipped all of us with the tools necessary to do so. And additionally, I think that just being in such a positive Jewish community, people are always inspiring me and uplifting my voice. I study something completely different than what a lot of people sort of study in this realm of things. I'm more on the STEM side of things, and at my school, the STEM community is not as sort of Jewish heavy as other communities. So I think one thing that I always remember is that, you know, just because I might be the only Jewish girl in the room, that doesn't make my voice any less valuable. And that's something that I constantly hear from parents and different leaders in the community. And I will say that for this upcoming year, I think we all know it will be challenging. Hearing sort of what SJP is also planning to do has been quite frustrating, but you know, we're always going to fight back and find ways to sort of deal with these situations. And I really hope that this coming year we could all like build coalitions with different communities. Last semester, I think all Jewish communities felt sort of isolated and completely felt like every community turned their back on us. So I'm hoping that this upcoming year that those sort of things change and we have more people to go to, or more people to kind of connect with that are outside of the Jewish community.
I could go next. This summer, I had the absolute privilege to intern at APAC in Washington, D.C., and it has just been such a phenomenal experience for me and a real summer of growth. And I've really learned that there is a loud minority. Even, I mean, in the US government and on college campuses, it is a loud minority, but it is a true minority. And I think going back to campus, it's really important that we are louder and we are prouder. I definitely agree with Chanel that this year is going to be challenging, just as challenging as last year, if not more, but I think we are way more prepared. I know this summer, me and my fellow advocates at Cornell have been working together and working to plan events and get ahead of the game. Again, being proactive is just super key. And I feel very empowered. I feel empowered to go back to campus and show Cornell's community that we are here and we are not going anywhere. And we are not going to take any more or less than the respect that we deserve. And we're just coming in strong. So I feel very fortunate that I've had this summer of growth. And I am definitely nervous for this upcoming year, but I am preparing. And I know that I have my Jewish community to lean on and to be there with me and stand tall with me.
I think the summer has prepared me for the upcoming school year in a lot of different ways. I had the chance to intern at a Fortune 200 company this summer, and one of the things that I most enjoyed was having conversations with my colleagues about my Jewish identity and what it means to be Jewish and why that's so important to me, not only as a college student or as an intern, but as I look to go into the workplace. And it was really those conversations that kept me inspired. It's so great to know that, look, things are tough on college campuses and things are tough when you get into the career world, but also there are going to be amazing people along the way who want to hear about you, who want to hear about your background and your experiences. And so it was really refreshing for me to have that. I also think I was prepared. I have been preparing in other ways, you know, because of AJC, I got to attend Global Forum. And I spoke on a panel with Chanel about, you know, the anti-Semitism on college campuses. And I left students with really one key message. Don't be scared, be prepared. And yes, there are scary moments on campus, but if we are well prepared and if we know that there are so many incredible resources out there, we'll be able to tackle these challenges head on, which is so important. And then lastly, just remembering that those organizations are here for you. And even if you're not involved in them in the past, whether it's Chabad or Hillel or the plethora of Jewish organizations, reach out to them. That's what they're there for. They're there to help you. They're there to deal with these struggles. And just one last thing I'll add here. I also got to participate in AJC's Leaders for Tomorrow program in high school in Dallas. It was a fantastic program. And I think it was really the cornerstone of my advocacy journey in Jewish advocacy and pro-Israel advocacy. And I think a lot of the skills that we learned there have really impacted my college experience and the connections that I built within AJC and outside of AJC have really been paramount in making my college experience what it is today. So if you have a high school student, that hasn't been involved in the program yet, it's a really great opportunity. And we're looking to build out exciting partnerships from our Campus Global Board side with the Leaders for Tomorrow program to continue the conversation with high school students, to remind them that, hey, things are challenging on campus, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And there are so many incredible opportunities for students to get involved in.
Thank you all. And as two of you have mentioned, our Leaders for Tomorrow program, usually known internally as LIFT, is growing this year. If you are interested to see if we have a cohort in your area, or if there's ways for you all to be involved, if you go on our website and look for LFT, you'll find more information. I know that some of the cohorts right now are still recruiting members. It is going to be larger cohorts than we had before because of rising for the occasion of where we are now. You all started talking about different places you go for community in different situations you had this year. If you can share more about specific strategies or relationship that you have built, places where you were able to work on creating a more campus-wide environment, or specific events or opportunities that popped up either throughout the school year or over the summer as you're preparing for a more encompassing school year, and just things that you felt that have worked, or you felt that you saw work in other campuses you're looking forward to have this year.
I can start with this one. I'm, like I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty involved in my Hillel. I am one of two students on our board of trustees, so I sit sort of above the student structure, and I'm able to see the big conversations that are happening about ways to make life better on campus for Jewish students. And in addition to that role, I was also our Hillel's interfaith chair in the last fall, and we knew that it would be nearly impossible to host a Jewish-Muslim dialogue where our campus isn't in a place to hold those conversations. We have tried in the past and it just wasn't possible. And I said, look, let's find another way to hold interfaith dialogue. And so I decided to set up a Jewish-Christian dialogue series where we could learn more about each other, learn more about our experiences. And it was really fun. It was just a great opportunity to come together as multiple different communities on campus to just learn, to engage, to have great dinner. It was a lot of fun, and I highly encourage folks on campuses to have these sorts of events. I mean, there's plenty of funding out there to do them, and they aren't too much of a lift in terms of planning. We specifically focused around dialogue. We had 3 different dinners, each focused on a different topic. And so we created diversity for the participants and what they were discussing. And I think that's a model that works really well, and finding, ways to do interfaith dialogue with a group, even if you're struggling to do it with another group. So that's been really, really impactful for me. And I think not only impactful for our Jewish students on campus, but also impactful for our Christian students on campus too.
I can go next. Beyond my involvement in the Jewish and pro-Israel space on campus, I am also a member of the University Leadership Council, which is about 15 students coming together that meet with administration every 2 weeks. And the whole idea of the council is to come together and talk about pressing student issues and solutions to them from the student perspective. We're basically liaisons from the student body to the administration. This council I started last August, so before October 7th, and I didn't realize how impactful it would be. I created multiple relationships with many admin, which after October 7th, we've had now continuous and scheduled meetings every few weeks, just to discuss how my community is feeling and what they can do to be helpful. And the more important part of this is that I am the only Jewish and only pro-Israel student on the council. So I've created these relationships with my peers before October 7th, who didn't necessarily know any Jewish students on campus or pro-Israel advocates. And maybe we're only hearing one side or hearing that loud minority. And after October 7th, I was in this really unique and special opportunity where I could actually talk to them. And during our meetings, I could speak up and say, a very pressing student issue is that we talked about the code of conduct, or that there were these disruptions in the libraries and that students couldn't study. So I think creating these relationships with those outside the Jewish community, like Ryan stated and said, that is key to expanding and making our voices heard. I'm sad to hear, Ryan, that some relationships couldn't last, but at Cornell, we did have a Jewish-Muslim alliance that was created after October 7th. There were definitely a lot of challenges. It started out really strong, and the students were very passionate who were about it. As the spring semester went on, unfortunately, it did dissolve, just for various events that happened at Cornell. It was hard for the students to come together. But I'm hopeful that this upcoming semester and this upcoming year, we can do more events like the Jewish Muslim Alliance started to hold. And again, just furthering those relationships that I've made with my non-Jewish peers and the admin. I think that's one of the best things I could tell incoming freshmen is be involved in the Jewish community, be that student leader, be that advocate, but also make those relationships outside the Jewish community, because those will really come in handy.
So like Ryan kind of mentioned, I'm also very involved on my Hillel board, and one of my favorite things that goes on during the spring semester is Israel Week. So I'm half Israeli, and I always talk about how proud I am about my culture and just my peoplehood. And something we do on campus is actually host a shuk. So we bring a bunch of Israeli snacks, spices, and have the music and everything going on campus. And it really sets aside, something that's a typical pro-Israel event. It's just celebrating culture. It's just celebrating tradition. And last spring, I went on a trip called Perspectives, where they take 5 Jewish students and 20 non-Jewish students to part of the West Bank in Israel. And a lot of the students on the trip weren't pro-Israel, but one of my favorite things about this event is that no matter where you stand on Israel and everything, you all come together at this one event and just have fun and enjoy good food. And yeah, there's always like really fun events, and I think that's been a really big highlight of my undergrad experience. That's something we've been doing since my freshman year, and that's actually something I started, and something I'm looking forward to doing in the upcoming fall is working with the USC Concerts Committee on hosting a joint concert between UCLA and bringing pro-Israel singers on stage. So I'm really looking forward to that, and using my relationship and just having such a close distance to UCLA and other local colleges in LA to my advantage. UCLA also had a lot going on in their campus, but I'm also very close with their Hillel directors, and I think that's something to kind of keep in mind. A lot of college campuses you might actually be going to are close to other schools, so just knowing that if you do want to reach out and build other communities outside of your own campus, that's also possible to do.
Thank you all. And all of these insights and ideas sounds like it's going to be a very, very interesting year. Before we open up for questions, just if you have any helpful or hopeful thoughts for this upcoming year to share for either yourselves or rising freshmen or our community.
I can kick us off. So I think, like many of us have said, despite all the difficulties, we might face in the upcoming year and have faced in the past, I think we're all extremely optimistic about the future. And, this past year has really shown how resilient and unified the Jewish community is. And that gives me so much hope. I have a ton of people I can talk to, and Mel and Ryan are one of my few of my closest friends, and Moosh has also been an incredible director for the board. So there's always people there to support you, and I think that through continued advocacy and education, we make significant strides towards a more inclusive and understanding environment and campus, which is all something we all want. And we touch on this a lot during this session, but really building strong relationships and communities outside of the Jewish community is something we all hope to do. At the end of the day, you know, we want to create a better community for ourselves and future generations and the next people who will be on our campus and the rising freshmen. And I think remembering the most challenging environments also cultivate the strongest and vibrant communities, which all of our schools have shown. So really, as you prepare for your college journey, embrace the opportunities to grow, connect, and make a difference on your campus. And remember that your voice matters, and together we're much louder. And I will speak for myself, but I'm sure everyone else feels this way. Feel free to connect with us on any sort of platforms. And if you run into any difficult situations on your campus, you can always reach out to any of us. And AJC is also a huge help if you also are dealing with a difficult situation.
I can go next. I just want to echo what Chanel said, that, you know, we have to use our voices, that unfortunately, if we aren't standing up for ourselves, no one else will. So we have to keep doing that. And as president of a Hillel, I would love if freshmen came up to me and introduced themselves. And if you're an incoming freshman, I definitely recommend doing that, especially if you want to be involved. There's so many ways to get involved during your first semester. And I definitely think that it's just, I found a community in the Jewish community at Cornell. And I think that if that's something you even have a little bit of interest in, to definitely put yourself out there, go to the events, even if it's alone. I went to many events alone my first semester at school. And I'm really hopeful for this coming semester. We have a really strong and vibrant community, and we just have to continue showing that. And like Chanel said, if anyone needs to reach out, please do. We are here to help, and we are here to answer any questions and give you any advice that we can.
I think something that I'm really hopeful for this year is a continuation of Jewish joy. As our Hillel was trying to understand sort of what's next after October 7th, we immediately wanted to focus on, okay, how do we support Jewish students? How do we support their mental health needs? How do we support their advocacy needs? And one of the sort of realizations that we had is Jewish joy is often overlooked. And we talk about the issues that we're having, and we, you know, talk about the anti-Semitism in the world, but we overlook the value of Jewish joy. You know, our tradition certainly teaches us to enjoy who we are and to find those moments of happiness. And I think that it's something that we often forget and need to be reminded of. And so I'm hopeful that Jewish organizations on campus and Jewish organizations in general will really take to heart the importance of Jewish joy and providing programming in which students don't have to worry about being an advocate. The only thing they have to worry about is, my schedule is so busy, I don't know if I'm going to have time to go, right? So like making sure that these opportunities are available very frequently for students to just take a step back and enjoy what it means to be Jewish and what it means to be part of such a unique and distinct community.
Thank you all. And on Ryan's note of Jewish joy, a few of us just recently enjoyed a very private concert with Noah Curel in DC a few nights ago, and I feel like that was a great moment of Jewish joy. Before we open it up for the questions part, I just want to add, so these three wonderful students are part of our Campus Global Board, who currently has 30 students from across the world. We're finalizing the board for the school year of 24-25, but we are also increasing and developing our involvement with college campus and students. So we're not just going to have this student board of 30, we'll also be working with a lot of others and creating opportunities. So stay tuned and keep an eye out for what everything else we're going to offer this school year. Claire, how do we want to do questions?
Thanks, Moosh. Our first question is from Shrub Kempner and others, and they're asking, you started to touch on this, but are you finding success in building allies with other communities? Who are you working with outside the Jewish community? Is there more collaboration possible? And Melanie, we can start with you.
Yeah, I definitely think more collaboration is possible, but just in the climate that we are in today, I think it's challenging, but I do think it's we've seen it work and we have to continue trying. Like I said, I'm in this unique position that I was already put in a room with such a diverse group of students. But even if you're not formally in this council like I am, I mean, you can create that group. At Cornell, all of our religious life is in one hallway. So it's really easy to just, walk a couple steps to the offices of the Christian group or the Hindu group or the Muslim group on campus and just really put yourself out there. I know when we had multiple BDS resolutions on campus, and each time I walked right over to our Christian group and I asked to speak to their president and asked them to spread the word to vote no. And I mean, that makes a really, really big difference. And also, I think obviously now, and since October 7th, we've been in crisis mode. I think Jewish students and student leaders on campus have been in crisis mode and just, again, really on defense. But I think as we continue down this path and as we move forward after October 7th, reaching out to people not to talk about BDS is key. I think reaching out to say, hey, like, my name's Mel, I'm the president of Hillel. I would love to get to know you or get to know your group, or, just get lunch and make those connections. And then when it's needed, you can go to them and say, hey, we have a BDS resolution. I need your help. It's hard to just go to someone and ask for their help if there's not an already existing relationship. So I think that's key going forward is creating those relationships, not when you need them, but for when you can use them and you have them.
So I can add, I think that, yeah, like Mel's sort of pointed out, I think we sort of need to see people with humanity and not treat it as sort of a transactional relationship. So I think it's really important to, first become friends or take someone to coffee. And that's something a lot of, Jewish organizations kind of teach us. Like, it's really important to, be personal and meet people on a face-to-face level and don't ask for something immediately. So that's one thing I want to point out. But I think the second is something I've been doing is just being a louder voice in kind of my school at USC. So I'm in the School of Gerontology, and this past summer, which I didn't get to mention, but I was conducting my own research project in the field of aging, and I'm also in student government in our specific school. And something I did last semester and plan to continue doing is bringing in Jewish doctors and pro-Israel advocates to different events and different mixers. And I'm also half Asian, so in my sort of student union club, I've been also bringing different speakers that are pro-Israel and also Jewish to that space. So I've just found different ways to which I can sort of intertwine my own background with things that I also am very heavily involved in. So it might be a case-to-case basis on how people can combine the two or integrate the two. But I think it's important to just use the communities that you're planning to get involved in or already involved in, and sort of bring those two together.
And I'll quickly just wrap up this question here. Mel mentioned that Cornell's religious life groups are all in the same building, and we have a similar setup at American University, and I'm very thankful that we do. There are challenges when space is limited because the Hillel community is so big, but it also provides great opportunity for interfaith conversations and building partnerships with other groups on campus. Just to give you a quick example, so AU is Methodist, and so based in the bylaws of the university, we have a university chaplain who is Methodist, and I've really formed a great relationship with him. And he's really been key for us in supporting Jewish students on campus and making sure that Jewish students feel safe and comfortable, not because it, necessarily fits in with his religious identity, but because he cares and he wants to make sure that student voices are heard across all different, faith-based and community groups. And so that's a relationship that I've been very thankful that's, outside of the Jewish community, but has been really, really impactful for the safety and well-being of Jewish students on campus.
Thank you. Our next question is from Lori Schwartz, who's asking, what advice can you give to students on a campus that doesn't have a Hillel or a Chabad presence? And Ryan, we can start with you.
Yeah, I know in many of these cases, it can often feel daunting to find this community. I would say specifically if there's not a Hillel and Chabad, trying to understand what organizations there are, if there are any related to Jewish life. If there aren't any related to Jewish life, I think a great place to go is if there's a Department of Jewish Studies on campus, reaching out to the faculty there or reaching out to the dean of that department, whomever, whatever leadership structure they might have, to see if they have any connections, specifically if you're in a small town, for example, reaching out to them to see, hey, what are the opportunities? You know, I'm Jewish and want to get involved in more Jewish Joy events. I'd love to go to Shabbat dinner. You know, what are the chances to make this happen? So finding an avenue that way is really great. And also, you know, if this student is on a campus and there's a school nearby that has a Hillel, maybe reaching out and saying, hey, I'm a student who goes to this other university, but we don't have, you know, established Jewish life on campus. Can I come for Shabbat dinner, or can I come to hear this speaker? So there are still great ways to get involved in Jewish life, even if there isn't sort of a structured, formalized organizational presence.
I'll just jump in. I absolutely agree with Ryan that there's always a way to get involved, and especially with outside organizations like AJC, like Stand With Us, APAC, all these different organizations have departments focused on college students and involving college students. So I think in addition to what Ryan said, reaching out to Jewish studies and maybe other schools or communities, also reaching out to these organizations, because that's what they're here for. They're here to help us. And I know I've definitely taken advantage of that. And I really encourage all of you to do so too.
Thank you. Our next question is from David Simon, and he's asking, how similar or dissimilar are the situations from college campus environments and high school environments? And Chanel, we'll start with you.
So, I mean, I'm not an expert on anything going on at the high school level, but I have a lot of students from my high school have sort of reached out to me and also have had the same sort of frustration from things they've been dealing with on their own campus. And I mean, it's a little different just because in high school, obviously nobody's going to be setting up encampments, but I think that we've also sort of seen the same situations with administration not taking a stance on where they stand with these issues. And I think that's really where these situations have gone out of hand. I think it sort of gives students a shield to say things that wouldn't have been said otherwise. So I think in that way, there's a lot of similarities between higher ups and people in power who have not taken the proper steps to, you know, put their foot down or address the situations that students are kind of experiencing on both the high school and a college campus level.
Thank you. Our last question is coming from a lot of people on Zoom who are asking, what's the best way for those of us on the call to support students on campus, whether we're parents, grandparents, or just people who are concerned about what we're seeing? Melanie, we'll start with you, but it would be great for all of you to answer.
I think what immediately comes to mind, and this is a hard question because I feel like there's so much that could be done, is one, just continuing to be there for the Jewish students, but also being an active member in the college campus community. I think that parents have the ability and totally should call or write administrators and also see what their student needs and see what the student body needs, I think is key. And I think that it's a really hard question because I feel like there's just so much that could be done, but I think just being involved and staying up to date and continuing to help their children or their friends, whatever it is, and just being a key player and an active player.
So I can sort of jump in. I think, yeah, this is also sort of a difficult thing to answer, but I think just checking in on sort of students or your child is really helpful, and just encouraging other people to also reach out. I think something that I found the most helpful was, when I received texts from my friends saying, is everything all right? Is there anything I can do? Is there any way I could be there for you? And it really means the most when people are sort of reaching out to you and asking if everything is okay and asking if you need to speak. And I think that's something we all sort of need to remember. I mean, we have these communities and spaces on campus, but it might also be hard for us individually to take the initiative to reach out. So sometimes I think we need someone on the other end doing that for us. So I just think checking in and making sure students are okay and making sure that that specific person is doing all right.
I think something that I've really benefited from is just parents giving kids opportunities. And, you know, not every student and not every kid is going to be an advocate on campus. And we can't expect that from everyone. So coming in with that mindset is really important, but also encouraging, you know, your kids, or if you're a student, getting involved, finding ways to build out that community. And if you're, you know, a parent and you know your kid wants to get involved, providing them with opportunities to get involved. And so, you know, staying in touch with your student about what opportunities are out there in the Jewish community and the pro-Israel space, et cetera. You know, my parents have certainly been really instrumental in understanding what I need as an advocate, what I need as a student, and how I can better support Jewish communities. And the ability to have those conversations has really shaped my experience in a positive way. And so I think that's something that's really important. And it's not always easy to do, but it really does make a difference.
Back to you, Moosh.
Thank you. And as we're about to wrap up, I want to first of all say thank you for all three of you, for Chanel, to Mel, and Ryan. I am very honored to have the privilege of spending more time with all three of you and many more of our amazing young leaders in this upcoming year. For everybody watching, everybody here, thank you for coming. Thank you for your questions. As we were mentioning, AJC is working more to be supportive of college students. We also have a high school department. Our whole avenue of empowering and listening to young leaders is something we're working very hard on this past year and this upcoming year. So stay tuned for more things. If you want to reach out to us on the website, there's more ways to interact with our staff and our different departments. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us and contact us. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ryan, Chanel, and Melanie, for today's conversation. And thank you to our global audience for tuning in and for standing with Jewish students during this incredibly difficult time. AJC is working every day to transform the campus climate. You can help us beat the hate by supporting AJC. Right now, any gift you make before August 21st will be doubled. You can donate by going to ajc.org/beat the hate. And if you'd like to access more resources about the situation on campus, please visit ajc.org/crisis on campus. Thank you again, and goodbye.